What is up, YouTube? It's your girl Londi, and welcome to Study with Londi. On today's episode, we're doing an analysis of chapter 1 of the book Dorian Gray. Strap back, get your notebooks out, and let's get into today's video. The story starts in London, in Basil Hallward's house. Basil is painting a portrait of Dorian Gray, a young man of extraordinary beauty. Lord Henry visits and admires the portrait. Lord Henry urges Basil to exhibit it. Basil refuses, saying he has put too much of himself into this painting. Basil recalls meeting Dorian at a party, where he was both fascinated and terrified by him. Dorian quickly becomes Basil's muse as an artist. Lord Henry remembers hearing about Dorian from his aunt, Lady Agatha, and insists on meeting him. Basil worries that Lord Henry's influence might corrupt Dorian's innocent and beautiful nature. This chapter is an introduction to the main characters, central themes, and the foreshadowing of moral conflict in this whole story. Just some key points from this chapter. We are introduced to 3 characters. We're introduced to Dorian Gray, who's handsome, innocent, and impressionable; Basil Hallward, who's moral, sincere, and inspired by Dorian's beauty; and Lord Henry, who's witty, charming, and could potentially corrupt Dorian because he's a corrupting influence. Sorry about that. And then we are introduced to a few themes. We have beauty and youth, influence and temptation, art and admiration. And we have some foreshadowing in this chapter. So Basil's fear of Lord Henry meeting Dorian actually hints at Dorian's future and how Lord Henry will influence him into this life of hedonism, right? Let's talk about the themes a little bit more. So whenever I tutor the kids that I tutor, I always tell them that for every theme, they should try and remember at least 1 or 2 quotes. And that goes for you guys too. Please try and remember 1 or 2 quotes for every single theme that exists, because you will need this when you have to write essays. How are you going to write an essay if you do not quote, or at least able to paraphrase the quote? So please try and remember 1 or 2 quotes for every theme that exists in a novel or a theme, right? Let's answer some questions. At this moment in time, guys, I'm going to ask you to pause this video and answer those questions so we can discuss them a little bit in the future. We are now in the future. How time flies. Wow. So I trust that we all answered those questions. So let's get into it, right? So the first question said, discuss the significance of Basil's refusal to exhibit Dorian's portrait, right? So we have to first note that the question is 4 marks. So there's 4 things we need to do, right? So the first thing is we have to state a fact. What do we know, right? So Basil refuses to exhibit the portrait. That's the first thing that we know. The next thing now is we now need a reason. That's the second thing we need. Give a reason for the text. So why is he saying this, or why does he not want to exhibit the portrait? So he says because he has given too much of himself in it, right? The next thing we must do is must link this to a theme. So which theme best suits this question or the answer that we're trying to answer, right? If you said anything to do with beauty and art, well done to you, because these are the only 2 themes you could have used in this specific question. And then the next part, we must just now conclude or interpret what we have now said, right? So basically, Basil's admiration of Dorian literally is on like the borderline, or is on the fence to fall into obsession. So he's like on thin ice, on like the verge of leaning into obsession, right? And I don't think anyone would want anyone to know what they're obsessed with. So that is why he feels that he's giving too much, right? You will realize that it asked for the significance. So looking at the whole novel, what is the significance of this specific thing? And it's a bit of foreshadowing, right? What is it foreshadowing? The power that Dorian will have over the people in this novel. And there are so many people who Dorian will affect with his beauty alone. I have an example right there of what your answers should look like. And if it doesn't look something like that, then it's okay. We will work on that. The next question is, how does Lord Henry's attitude in this chapter foreshadow his influence on Dorian? So the first thing we need to do is we need to state what we know about Lord Henry, or his personality rather, right? So we know that he's charming and he's witty and he's like this influential person. Then the second thing we need to do is we need to mention that he is determined to meet Dorian, despite the fact that Basil is warning him not to, right? So the fact that Basil is warning him not to meet Dorian and he's insistent on it, it means that to a certain extent they both know that Lord Henry is this influential person, and Basil doesn't want him to influence Dorian, and the fact that Lord Henry is insistent on it, it means that he enjoys influencing people and he wants to do it to specifically Dorian. And I have an example answer for us there. So Lord Henry is presented as this charming person. So he ignores Basil's warning and is insistent on meeting Dorian. His determination shows that he enjoys influencing others, which foreshadows the role he will play in sharpening Dorian's world view. Question number 3. This is literally the only slide that I wrote question number 3 in, but it's fine. Let us keep moving. So it says, identify and explain one theme introduced in this chapter. Now, so the first thing you have to do is you have to write down the name of the theme that you think you have seen. So what theme have we seen in this chapter? So I'm going to say beauty and youth, right? Then you have to give a quote. Guys, try and memorize quotes, please. They will help you. So the quote I am going to use is, he has become my sole inspiration. Yeah? Then number 3, what you have to do is explain how the theme is shown in this chapter. So where do we see this theme? I have an example answer for us there. So if it looks something like that example answer, we are on the right track. And if it doesn't, don't worry, stick around to Study with Londi. Like, comment, and subscribe. Question number 4. So it says, explain the role of foreshadowing in this chapter, right? So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to state what foreshadowing is, or remind ourselves what foreshadowing is. Nah? So foreshadowing is basically hinting at future events or things that we see in an early chapter that warns us of something that's going to happen in a future chapter, right? That's the first thing we're going to do. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to give an example of this. Yeah. So Basil warns that Lord Henry will spoil Dorian's character, which is so true. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to explain how this hints to Dorian's fate. Now, then I have an example answer for us there. So foreshadowing is used when Basil warns that Lord Henry's views will spoil Dorian's nature. This hints that Lord Henry will have a negative influence on Dorian, leading him to moral corruption, explored later in this novel. And the last question for today. So it says here, describe Dorian's role in this chapter, right? So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to have to describe or state what we know about Dorian. And in this specific chapter, it only gives us a physical description of Dorian, that he's handsome, youthful, and impressionable. Yeah. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to describe his narrative role. Now, so in this specific chapter, he's like inspiration for Basil. Yeah. And then we're going to dissect all of this. And then let us look at the example answer. If your example answer is similar to mine, well done. If it's not, why haven't you subscribed? Like, the subscribe button is right there, and I'll go subscribe. In fact, subscribe and hit the like button, and then hit the notification button, because so it says Dorian is portrayed as a handsome and innocent young man whose beauty inspires Basil's art and captured Lord Henry's interest, right? Basically, his role here is to set the central conflict in motion through the influence others seek to have on him. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Today we didn't have an intro, we didn't have an outro. A lot was going on, but I promise to get better, and I hope you are liking, commenting, and subscribing. Until next time, ciao, Bellas.